Kansas State cooks again with a top recruiting flip over an SEC school. Let's talk about it right here on Locked On Kansas State.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rauh, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen of the day. Welcome back to my everydayers. Happy Monday. We have another episode for you today. We are absolutely cooking. We're bringing March in like a lion, out like a lamb, whatever the case you want to bring. We're bringing a lot of stuff to you right here. So if you haven't already, click subscribe because we're bringing Kansas State Wildcat content to you like no one else can right here every single day. This episode today is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We're talking Kansas State women's basketball today, and unfortunately, we're not talking about a game in the future because the team was eliminated over the weekend by USC in the Sweet 16. A great game, great effort. We're going to dig into some of those post-game pressers, if you will, talk about Ayoka, Serena, Sundell, and what Jeff Mittie had to say about both of them and the future of this program. But we got some news about the future of this program heading into the new season. The offseason obviously starts immediately after the team is eliminated from the tournament. That's just how this goes. And Kansas State wasted no time whatsoever. There was rumors about Jeff Mittie possibly leaving for another school, him possibly going on to coach Missouri. Obviously, those rumors were squashed when they went with a different coach. And to be honest, I'm not sure how much he was actually in the running. I'm sure there was a phone call, but regardless, the reason why I don't think that he was actually considering the job is because the recruiting class that Kansas State is about to have might be the best recruiting class that this women's basketball program has ever seen at Manhattan, and it gets even bigger with the news that dropped over the weekend. Kansas State's class of 2025 just got better with 4-star, technically, I guess, a forward, 6'1" forward, Brandie Harrod comes over from, was committed to Auburn, a SEC school, committed to the Auburn Tigers. She lets go of her recruitment. She opens it back up after a coaching change happens there, and she winds up getting with Jeff Mittie and the rest of the Kansas State Wildcats. This class, according to ESPN.com, was already the number 6 recruiting class before Harrod commits to Kansas State, and now it's going to probably go up even more, probably a top 5 recruiting class after this. According to On3, she reopened her recruitment after the coaching change, and she was considering Mississippi State, another SEC school, Clemson, Georgia, Utah, Florida State, a couple other Big 12 schools like Colorado and Oklahoma State in her original recruitment. But Kansas State really stuck out. There's a quote that came out that said, quote, "I've been really liking the coaches and the team. It was kind of easy, but at the same time, I had to get back to where we were before I committed." 6-foot guard, according to On3. I've seen her be considered a guard or a forward. So maybe some versatility here. Could be a great piece for this new rebuilding Kansas State women's team that they obviously have to rebuild. You're only really bringing back Terran Sides and Z Walker as like viable rotational players that you had just last season. A lot of seniors leaving from this past Sweet 16 run. So you're going to bring in a huge recruiting class. That's exciting, but still a lot of questions still going. A top 5 recruiting class, though, for put it in consensus or just put it into, just a feeling here. USC, the team that just beat Kansas State in the Sweet 16, had the top recruiting class this past season. And some of the players that stepped up for USC with Juju Watkins out were freshmen. So there is an immediate impact of Kansas State being able to get right back to this spot, get right back to the Sweet 16, and hopefully even farther. Elite 8's got to be the goal right next. You got to get to Elite 8 and farther. Now you've hit this Sweet 16 milestone. Another pillar is ready to get knocked down. a top 5 recruiting class is definitely going to help that happen. Another quote from Harrod from this On3 report says, "They were one of my first Power 5 offers, so I was able to talk to them for a long time. I went to visit back in 2023, and I just loved their community and the coaches as soon as I got there." So she loves Manhattan, loves Coach Mitty and the coaching staff. Sounded like a great fit. Whatever happened to the reason why she committed to Auburn, not sure, but after her opening up her commitment, knew that it was a good choice to come to Kansas State. So exciting for that. Asked the question in the article, the factors that impacted her decision, and she said the style of play and their overall success. So you're telling me that it's not just the fact that they have Coach Mitty, they have these players, and not beautiful Manhattan is the reason why you decided to go at Kansas State? No, it's because this team just went on a great run to the Sweet 16. Coach Mitty in his press conference right after the Sweet 16 loss, which we're going to get to more in depth, mentioned the fact of how this team over the last 2 seasons has one of the best win-loss record in all of college basketball. One of the top, not the very top, but one of the top. That success is contagious, not just for the players on the team, not just for the community, but recruits. And this is a perfect example right here why you can get a flip against an SEC school. Now, this isn't the Auburn Tigers that are in the Final Four like the men's side. They've had some issues on the women's basketball team for a couple seasons. That's why they made the coaching change. But it is still an SEC school that has to fight with NIL, with transfer portal money, you name it. They have the ability to do that. You had to fight against an SEC school, which is always a tough thing to do, especially in women's basketball right now. South Carolina, Tennessee, I mean, you name it. There are multiple schools in that conference that are at the top of this program, at this game in women's basketball. She said she likes how fast they play. One of their girls, I feel like our play style is very similar, and she's been able to get up and down the court. She's going to be gone next year, so I feel like I'll fit in that spot. Not sure who she's referring to. I'm wondering if it's maybe Serena Sundell. I would hope that to be the case. 6'1", forward/guard. Maybe that's the case that she's thinking, or maybe it's Glenn. Not really sure. Either way, if she thinks that she can fit the spot and plays the same style as either one of those 2 players, that is super exciting, knowing that you're having a freshman come in and hopefully be able to fill those shoes. Huge shoes, absolutely gigantic shoes. But you got to start somewhere. And with Coach Mitty being able to build the core once again with Sides and Walker kind of leading that charge, it's going to be really exciting to watch. And it's going to be a really fun offseason continuing to talk about this. I'm sure the portal is going to be interesting as well. There's already some rumblings about possible portal additions. We'll see if they can bring in maybe a veteran presence to build up with this new freshman class, this great recruiting class, maybe 1 or 2 pieces. So there's a lot of fun things that are coming in down the women's pipeline. It's not all doom and gloom because they fell in the Sweet 16 this past weekend. Unfortunately, I would have loved to be able to talk about and hop on today and saying they're playing in the Elite Eight tonight, because that's when this game between UConn and USC is taking place. But you move on, and unfortunately, that's exactly what Kansas State's coaching staff had to do. And I love the fact that they wasted no time. They wasted no time. You give your nods, you give your flowers to the team that broke history, made the Sweet 16 for the first time in over 20 years, since 2002. But they honestly know that you have to pass the torch, and that's exactly what this coaching staff is pushing forward to the team that is still here. You got to move on, you got to push the torch, and you got to start setting that mindset right away for next season. That is how championship caliber teams are made. And it excites me even much more, just so much more, knowing that they're not wasting a single second on making sure they find a way to get back to the Sweet 16 and hopefully the Elite Eight and beyond next season. We're going to talk about the press conference. We're going to talk about so much more as we wrap up kind of a little bit more women's basketball talk. And then I saw a tweet on social media that really just encapsulates all of Kansas State's athletics, and I wanted to break that down on this show. We'll do all of that next, right here on Locked On Kansas State. Well, as we know, March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. Is there even a Cinderella story left? Don't think so. It's all chalk, especially on the men's side. Second time in history that all number one seeds on the men's side made the Final Four. Speaking of that, I think we saw Florida right now open up as a 2.5 point favorite from our friends at FanDuel. And Houston, who I'm rooting for, Big 12 believer right here, is a 4.5 point underdog opening up against the Duke Blue Devils heading into Final Four. So visit FanDuel.com, get in on the college hoop action all tournament long. That is FanDuel. Welcome back to Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. For your second listen of the day, check out Locked On College Basketball. Isaac Shade, Andy Patton has you covered. They're talking Final Four. They're breaking this down. Transfer portal's wide open. They have plenty to talk about, so be sure to be the most informed college basketball fan out there. Check out Locked On College Basketball wherever you listen to your podcast and on YouTube. We are ecstatic right now on this podcast because the women's basketball team is wasting no time. They are adding another recruit and probably just moved this recruiting class of 2025 of the women's basketball program into a top 5 class after grabbing 6'1" guard from Oklahoma City, Millwood High School. It's just amazing. Brandie Harrod from Oklahoma City. Again, flipping from Auburn over to Kansas State. I can't stress how amazing that is and what a win, what an absolute win for Jeff Mittie and his coaching staff. Speaking of Jeff Mittie, after the game this past weekend, he was at the press conference, of course, with Ayoka and Serena Sundell, speaking about the loss and just the season as a whole. You know, if you join me on the live post-game show after the game, two of the things I was hoping to get answered, one was talking about the 12-0 run, why he didn't decide to call a timeout earlier. That was never answered. And to be honest, I guess I'm not surprised because they did more focus on the season as a whole, giving Ayoka and Serena Sundell their flowers. And I'm more than okay with that. I can live with not getting that answer from Jeff Mittie. Although I still will probably question it. We'll probably talk about that a few times on the show during the offseason. What could have happened, right? But I'm glad that they focused more on the success that this team had in breaking history and becoming one of the only teams in program history to make it to a Sweet 16, only the third time in Kansas State women's basketball history. Of course, Ayoka having a historic career, leaving with NCAA records, Serena Sundell being now the program's all-time assist leader. So I'm glad that they more directed it towards that. I guess in the light of things, when I was talking in the live post game, I was more kind of thinking what the questions will be without the season ending, I guess, because it's finally the season has come to an end. And I was thinking more of just a normal post game. And of course, that wasn't the case. I guess the biggest elephant in the room when asking questions was asking Ayoka what she intends to do with her extending her basketball career, technically. And what she said was, that is a tomorrow question. And I don't think she truly meant tomorrow as in the very next day. I think that she's probably going to come out with a statement when she's ready. She's probably going to talk to some people that are very close to her, maybe Coach Mittie, coaching staff, maybe work on some of her, talk to professionals or whatever the case may be. They've talked about how she already has a career outside of Kansas State. She's already seeing clients as, I believe, a family therapist. I think that's what I heard. And that's an awesome career to have. And by the way, how amazing is it that she is playing Division I basketball at a Power 4 level? She's had to deal with multiple injuries. That alone is a recovery itself, mentally and physically, and still finding a way to have clients to focus on other people. I mean, that's an amazing character of a human being. I don't think I have to tell you that. But it's exciting knowing that she was a part of our program and always will be. And I'm very excited to see her number go up in the rafters very soon. I mean, I think the first chance you get, it's got to happen. Home opener next season, like make that happen. And not only should Ayoka go there, I think at the very same time, you should do it as a duo. Bring Serena Sundell's number and fly that baby up there as well. Because what she's done for this program, unmatched with the exception of Ayoka, to be completely honest, these two have been great and they're staples. And to be honest, I wish that they were coming back next season. This show just started this year. And although I've watched them for years in this program, this is the first year I'm actually covering them. I'm going to be a little selfish here and say I wish I was able to cover them more on a professional level like this, other than just one season, because it's been absolutely amazing. But I am really excited for the future of this program. And Serena even had an opportunity to say it at the press conference. They asked, what would you say to the players coming back? And I loved her answer. She said, don't be afraid to lead. She's okay, talking about passing the torch. And that was the main focus. Don't be afraid to lead. And I love that, because that opens up the door for anybody, no matter the class, the position you're in, whether you're a starter, rotational piece, there's always an opportunity for you to lead in a program, on a team. And I love that advice. Simple advice. I'm sure there's going to be more on a closed door situation for some of those other players. And I'm sure there's always going to be an open line, text, whatever you want to call, with those players, and like a Terran Sides and a Z Walker, the players are going to come back. So again, really cool seeing that post-game conference from Ayoka, Serena Sundell, and Coach Mitty. It's unfortunate that the season had to end. It would have been really cool to break the 1982 record of making it back to the Elite Eight. And the game was within reach. There's no doubt about that. You want to blame the refs? You can, sure. USC, I think, beat them. I don't know, let's use the phrase fair and square just because of some things that happened, but I would be reluctant to say that the better team won, but it was a tough matchup, and they were a very good defensive team. They found a way to stop Kansas State in certain aspects. They performed at a level that Kansas State wasn't ready for. Certain players that I'm assuming Kansas State didn't prepare for stepped up, because it's the first time they really stepped up all season in that aspect. It's the first time they had to go without Juju Watkins, and that's exactly what happened in this one. So again, great season to the women's basketball team. Now we look with all eyes forward on the new season. The class of 2025 just got better again with 4-star Brandie Harrod. She was the number 38 prospect according to Prospect Nation, number 42 according to 24/7, and number 59 according to ESPN. So at the very worst, according to these national media outlets, she is a top 60 prospect in the class of 2025, or recruit, I guess you should say. So with that being said, you're already at number 6 in the entire recruiting class, according to ESPN. Adding another top 60 recruit in your ESPN rankings, you got to be at least top 5. I wouldn't even doubt if you jump 2. Like, we might be talking this class is number 4 when it's all said and done. I'm excited to see when these rankings update. Be sure to check out Locked On K-State on Twitter X. As soon as I see that, I will be definitely sharing that without question. Next time we talk women's basketball, I'm sure I'll be bringing that up as well. All right, there was a tweet. Speaking of Twitter, there was a tweet that I saw on social media after the women's loss, and it brought everything in sports, Kansas State athletics, kind of full circle and back to this moment that I wanted to share with you. And I want to do that right here as we wrap up this episode of Locked On Kansas State.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I want to end today's show, hopefully on a lighter note. Hopefully it gives you a good feeling as we head into what is going to be a huge week on this show. So be sure to hit subscribe and hit the bell or whatever the case you need to be to make sure you're not missing a single episode here on Locked On Kansas State. But this tweet comes from @RealBenBoyle. Comes from Ben Boyle, according to his profile, general manager, K-State Sports Properties, college hoop play-by-play broadcaster. And he goes out with this tweet and says, the last 3 seasons, the football team, Big 12 title, and the Sugar Bowl win. You can add the whole, and the Sugar Bowl, I should say. You can say also a Pop-Tart champion, huge Pop-Tart champion, right? Men's basketball goes to the Elite Eight in Jerome Tang's first year. Baseball goes to the Super Regional, and women's basketball hits the Sweet 16 this year. All of that happened in the last 3 seasons of Kansas State athletics. Now, I know there's been a downside feeling about the men's basketball team the last 2 years, what's been going on with the portal, not being able to figure it out, especially right now, a lot of questions flying in the air because no one's left in the portal. What's going to happen? We'll have you covered here, by the way, because there's a lot of rumblings of people possibly coming in. We'll have you covered right here on Locked On Kansas State. Women's basketball team, there's going to be some big question marks this offseason. Get ready for it, knowing that you're losing so many players. Can this new recruiting class answer the call? And then the football team, can they get past the 9-win mark, right? Although you won the Big 12 championship in 2022, it's just not enough. Got to get more. After starting 7-1, you falter at the end and you wind up in a bowl game against Rutgers. That's the worst that is at right now. That's the worst that this program, these athletics are at. That is a much better situation than a lot of programs, not only in college athletics, but in the same conference, in the Big 12. Like maybe BYU has it better when you look at the entire college athletics as a whole. I could maybe make the argument that BYU right now has it better. Their football team looked good. They were just pretty far in the NCAA tournament. But do they? Do they have all 4 major sports doing this in the last 3 years? I don't know. I don't think so. Although Houston made the Final Four this year. What was their football team? Where's their women's basketball team? They just fired their coach. Baseball? Nope. Kansas State is doing some amazing things all around in every single sport that they're touching right now. And just the 4 that we name in this tweet, we saw from football, the momentum that we continue to talk about this offseason, that's going to head into Dublin in week 0, get to start off the entire college football season. How can you not be excited about that? How can you not be excited about that? The men's basketball team, I keep constantly telling you folks that you should start being excited. Although it was a rough year, no one's left in the portal yet. And although there are going to be a few people, and I figure it's going to happen this week once we hit the new month. I think April, once we get to Tuesday and a couple of those days, I think we're going to start hearing a couple names. But overall, I don't think it's going to be a lot. That core is going to be built. The beginning of this Houston model is about to start. And in a year from now, we're not going to have to call it the Houston model. We're going to be able to call it the Kansas State model. Because I think Jerome Tang is on to something. So stay tight. Hold on. Have some faith. Have some patience with this men's team. The baseball team is starting off super strong right now, leading the Big 12. I think they only have 1 loss in the Big 12 right now. Unreal. Super Regional was a great thing to do last year. I think it's going to be even farther this year. Hello, Omaha? Could it happen? Absolutely. And then we wrap it up again, just to circle it all back. This women's team. Sweet 16 for the first time since 2002. We get to say goodbye to 2 legends that wore a Kansas State Wildcats uniform that will be in the rafters, in Serena Sundell, Ayoka. And I'm not even mentioning the other seniors that had huge contributions, but they deserve their flowers as well. Coach Mitty's sticking around. He's got an amazing recruiting class coming in. I would assume that this team, with the way they finished their season and the recruiting class coming in, at the very worst, And I think it's going to be better than this. At the very worst, they're preseason top 15 to start the season. Dare I say top 10? I think they should be top 10. Will they be? That's a different story. We know how national pundits are when a lot of players are leaving. But at least top 15. What I'm getting at as we wrap up this show, and thank you for the tweet, by the way, because I needed it. I bookmarked it. I needed the bookmark. I think there's only one bookmark on the tweet, and it's from me. Guilty. Because I wanted to look at it. We're in a great time period for Kansas State athletics. So be excited. And I'm absolutely ecstatic knowing that I get to cover it with you every single day right here on Locked On Kansas State. Be sure to like the video. Be sure to subscribe. We'll be back here again with another episode real soon, right here on Locked On Kansas State.